When I look back on my life as a mother, I realize there are moments that truly test who we are. We like to think we're prepared for every stage of parenting, the scraped knees, the late-night fevers, the teenage attitude, the first heartbreaks. But nothing prepared me for the night my son, Ethan, came home and asked me for something I never thought I would say yes to. It wasn't a simple request. It wasn't the kind of question you can answer without thinking. It was the kind of moment that shakes you to your core, the kind of moment where your entire identity as a parent feels like it's on the line. That night changed everything. Ethan was my only child. From the moment he was born, he had been my reason for everything. I raised him alone after his father, David, walked out when Ethan was only 5 years old. I can still remember the day David packed his bags, saying he just wasn't ready for this kind of life. Ready or not, I didn't have the option to leave. Ethan needed me, and from then on, it was just the two of us against the world. I worked 2 jobs for years, one at a diner during the day, another cleaning offices at night. I often came home exhausted, but I never let Ethan see how tired I really was. I wanted him to grow up knowing he was worth every ounce of energy I had to give. He was a good kid, polite, smart, and thoughtful. He loved to draw when he was little, covering the fridge with pictures of superheroes he made up himself. As he grew older, he discovered music. He spent hours in his room with a beat-up old guitar I had found at a yard sale. He taught himself to play, and soon he was writing songs, scribbling lyrics in the margins of his notebooks instead of finishing his homework. At first, I thought it was just a hobby, something to keep him busy, something that would fade once he got older. But it didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger. When Ethan got accepted into college, I cried tears of joy. All the sacrifices, all the sleepless nights, all the times I went without so he could have just a little more, it all felt worth it. I thought college would be his ticket to a stable life, to a career where he wouldn't have to struggle the way I did. I believed I was giving him everything I never had. But deep down, I should have known that Ethan's heart was pulling him in a different direction. That autumn weekend when he came home, I noticed immediately that something was different. He wasn't his usual cheerful self. He was quiet, withdrawn, almost as if he was carrying a weight too heavy for him alone. I cooked his favorite dinner, chicken pot pie, mashed potatoes, and sweet tea, but he barely touched his plate. Afterward, he asked if we could talk outside. My heart skipped a beat. Mothers know when a serious conversation is coming. We sat on the porch. The wind was cool, the leaves crunching across the lawn. Ethan didn't sit right away. He paced back and forth, his hands deep in his pockets, his eyes fixed on the ground. Finally, after what felt like forever, he stopped and looked at me. His voice trembled when he spoke. "Mom, there's something I need to ask you, and I don't know how you're going to feel about it." I reached for his hand. "You can tell me anything, Ethan. You're my son. Nothing will change that." He took a deep breath. "I don't want to go back to school. I can't. I want to follow music full-time. I know it's not what you dreamed for me, but it's what I need to do. And I need you to say yes, because if you don't believe in me, I don't think I can believe in myself." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. For years, I had built my entire life around the idea that my son was going to finish college. I thought it was the only way to give him security, the only way to guarantee he'd never struggle the way I did. And now, here he was, asking me to let him walk away from it all. I wanted to scream. I wanted to beg him to reconsider. I wanted to tell him he was being reckless, that dreams don't pay the bills, that music was a passion but not a career. But when I opened my mouth, the words caught in my throat. Instead, I just looked at him. And what I saw wasn't a reckless kid throwing away his future. I saw a young man terrified of disappointing his mother, but even more terrified of denying who he really was. That night, I didn't give him an answer. I told him I needed time. He nodded, looking disappointed but understanding. He went to bed, and I sat awake on the couch for hours, staring at the ceiling. Memories of my own youth flooded back. I remembered how I once wanted to be a writer, how I filled journals with stories and poems. But life had other plans. Bills had to be paid, responsibilities took over, and little by little, I let that dream slip away. I wondered, What if I had someone back then who had told me to chase it, to believe in it, to believe in myself? Would my life have turned out differently? The next day, Ethan showed me some of his music. He played me a song he had written, a song about growing up with just me, about watching me work myself to the bone, about how much he wanted to make me proud. The lyrics broke me. His voice was raw, filled with emotion. He wasn't just playing around. He wasn't just a kid with a hobby. He was an artist. Still, fear not at me. Music was uncertain. What if he failed? What if he ended up with nothing? What if I let him chase this dream and it destroyed his future? The what-ifs kept me up at night. But then another thought came to me. What if I forced him to live a life he didn't want? What if I made him choose security over passion, and he ended up resenting me for the rest of his life? One evening, I drove to a small cafe where Ethan had been performing with some of his friends. I hadn't told him I was coming. I sat in the back, my heart pounding as I watched him step onto the stage with that old guitar slung over his shoulder. The room fell silent as he began to play. And in that moment, I saw him for who he truly was. He wasn't just my son. He was an artist, a storyteller, a soul that couldn't be caged by expectations. The audience clapped, some even wiping away tears. I wiped away my own. And that's when it hit me. I couldn't let fear dictate his life. I had to give him the one thing I always wished someone had given me: permission to chase the dream. That night, when we got home, I finally gave him my answer. I looked him in the eye and said, "Ethan, I'm scared for you. I won't pretend I'm not. But I believe in you. And if this is what you want, then yes. Yes, I'll support you." He froze for a moment, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Then he hugged me tighter than he ever had before. "Thank you, Mom. You don't know how much this means to me." From that day on, things weren't always easy. There were arguments, there were struggles, there were nights when I lay awake worrying about the future. But there was also joy in watching him grow into himself, joy in seeing him perform, joy in knowing that my yes had given him the freedom to be who he was meant to be. Years later, I look back and realize that saying yes was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but also the most important. Ethan didn't become a superstar overnight. Success didn't come easily. But he worked harder than I had ever seen him work. He poured himself into his music, and little by little, doors began to open. He started recording, traveling, and even making enough money to support himself. And every step of the way, he reminded me that none of it would have been possible without that yet and.